Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table at 2 a.m., staring at one of those retirement calculators online. You punch in your numbers, current age, retirement age, how much you've saved so far, and then it hits you with that terrifying message in red letters. Based on your current savings rate, you'll run out of money at age 73. Better hope you don't live past that, right? So what do most people do? They panic and decide they need to save more, way more. They bump up their 401k contribution from 6% to 10%, maybe even 15% if they're really freaking out. They cut back on everything. No more daily coffee, no more dinner out, rice and beans for every meal because they need to save every possible penny for retirement. And sure, saving more money sounds like it should fix the problem. More money equals better retirement, right? Except here's the thing nobody wants to tell you. For most people, just saving more money isn't going to fix their retirement problem, not even close. And before you close this video thinking I'm about to tell you to give up on retirement planning and just live for today, hold on. I'm actually going to show you why the entire way we think about retirement is broken and what you actually need to focus on if you want to retire comfortably. Because spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think. Let's talk about why saving more often doesn't work the way you expect it to. You've probably heard that you need to save $1 million for retirement, or maybe it's $2 million or $3 million depending on which financial guru is screaming at you this week. So you do the math. You're 35 years old with $50,000 saved. You need to get to $1 million in 30 years. The calculator tells you that if you save $1,000 per month and earn 7% returns, you'll hit your goal. Perfect. Problem solved. Except your take-home pay is $4,500 per month. After rent, car payment, insurance, student loans, groceries, and basic living expenses, you've got maybe $500 left over. Not $1,000, not even close. But the retirement calculator doesn't care about your reality. It just keeps telling you to save more. So what happens? You try to save that $1,000 for a few months. You cut everything. You're miserable, you're stressed, and then your car breaks down, or your kid needs braces, or literally anything unexpected happens. And suddenly, you're not saving $1,000 anymore. You're not even saving $500. You're dipping into your emergency fund just to survive. And that retirement calculator is still sitting there, judging you with its smug assumptions. Here's the uncomfortable truth. For a huge chunk of Americans, there simply isn't enough money left after basic expenses to save their way to a comfortable retirement. And telling these people to just save more is like telling someone who's drowning to just swim harder. It completely misses the actual problem. Let's look at the real numbers for a second. The median household income in America is around $75,000. Sounds decent until you start breaking down where that money actually goes. Housing takes about 30% of that, so that's $22,500 gone. Transportation is another $10,000. Food is $8,000. Healthcare is $5,000 and climbing every year. Taxes eat up another chunk. Student loans for many people. Childcare if you've got kids. And we haven't even talked about clothing, utilities, phone, internet, or any of the other 100 things you need just to function in modern society. By the time you add all that up, the average household has maybe 10 to 15% of their income left over, and financial experts are telling them they need to save 15 to 20% for retirement alone, not including emergency savings, not including college funds for kids, just retirement. The math doesn't work. It's literally impossible for millions of people to save their way to retirement security, and pretending otherwise is just cruel. But here's where it gets even more frustrating. Even if you do manage to save aggressively for 30 years and accumulate $1 million, that might not be enough anyway. Know why? Because the entire retirement planning model is based on assumptions that might be completely wrong. Those calculators assume you'll earn 7% returns every year. But what if the next 30 years don't look like the last 30 years? What if returns are lower? What if we have a major crash right when you retire and your $1 million turns into $600,000 overnight? They assume inflation will stay around 2% to 3%, but we just watched inflation spike to 9%. What if that happens again when you're living on a fixed retirement income? They assume healthcare costs will be manageable with Medicare, but Medicare doesn't cover everything, and out-of-pocket healthcare costs in retirement are absolutely brutal. They assume you'll live to maybe 85 or 90, but what if you live to 95 or 100? Congratulations on your longevity, now you're broke.
The whole system is built on hope and assumptions. Save enough money, hope the market cooperates, hope inflation stays low, hope you don't live too long, hope nothing goes catastrophically wrong. That's not a plan. That's a prayer. And betting your entire retirement on everything going according to plan for the next 30 to 50 years is honestly insane when you think about it. So if saving more won't fix your retirement, what will? This is where we need to completely flip how we think about this problem. Instead of obsessing over how much money you can save, you need to focus on three things that actually matter: how much you're spending, how you're making your money work for you, and what your retirement will actually look like.
Let's start with spending, because this is where most retirement planning goes completely off the rails. Every retirement calculator asks you what percentage of your current income you'll need in retirement, and the standard answer is 70 to 80%. But think about how ridiculous that is. They're assuming you'll spend almost the same amount of money in retirement as you do while working. Why? You're not commuting anymore, you're not buying work clothes, you're not grabbing lunch out 5 days a week, your kids are hopefully out of the house and off your payroll, your mortgage might be paid off. If you're spending 80% of your working income in retirement, you're doing retirement wrong. The whole point is that your expenses should drop significantly. But here's the catch: they'll only drop if you intentionally design your retirement to be less expensive. And most people never think about this until they're already retired and watching their savings evaporate faster than they expected. Here's what actually wealthy retirees figured out. They spent their working years not just saving money, but also strategically reducing their future retirement expenses. They paid off their mortgage before retiring, so housing becomes way cheaper. They moved to lower cost of living areas where their retirement savings stretch further. They built skills and hobbies that are free or cheap instead of expensive. They created a lifestyle that doesn't require a massive income to maintain. Think about two different people retiring with the exact same amount of money saved. Let's say they both have $500,000. Person A still has a mortgage payment. They live in an expensive city. They're used to eating out regularly and taking luxury vacations. They need $60,000 per year to maintain their lifestyle. Person B paid off their house. They moved somewhere with lower costs. They learned to enjoy simple pleasures that don't cost much. They need $30,000 per year to be happy. Who do you think is going to have a better retirement? Person B's $500,000 is going to last way longer, not because they saved more money, but because they designed a retirement that costs less to live. This is the secret that nobody talks about. The amount of money you need in retirement is completely flexible based on the lifestyle you choose. You have way more control over your expenses than you do over market returns or how long you live. Now let's talk about making your money actually work for you, because this is the second place where traditional retirement advice falls apart. Most people think retirement planning is just about accumulating a big pile of money and then slowly withdrawing from it. Save $1 million, pull out 4% per year, hope it lasts until you die. But wealthy retirees think about money completely differently. They don't just accumulate money, they build income-producing assets. What's the difference? If you have $1 million in a retirement account, you've got a big number, feels good to look at. But that money isn't doing anything for you until you sell some of it. And every time you sell, you're reducing the pile and reducing future growth. It's a countdown to zero. But if you have $500,000 in dividend-paying stocks throwing off $20,000 per year, or rental properties generating $2,000 per month in cash flow, or a small business that runs itself and pays you $30,000 annually, that's income that keeps coming whether you touch the principal or not. This is why some people can retire comfortably on way less money than the calculators say they need. They're not living off their savings, they're living off the income their assets generate. Their money is working for them instead of just sitting there waiting to be spent. And here's the beautiful part. If your income-producing assets generate enough to cover your basic living expenses, you could leave your retirement accounts alone to keep growing. You've essentially created your own pension. Building income-producing assets takes a different approach than just maxing out your 401k. It means maybe buying rental property in your 30s, even though it's scary and complicated. It means investing in dividend stocks instead of just growth stocks. It means starting a side business that could eventually run without you. It means thinking about cash flow and passive income, not just account balances.
And yeah, this is harder than just setting up an automatic transfer to your 401k. It requires learning new skills. It requires taking some risks. It requires actually thinking about investing instead of just dumping money into a target date fund and hoping for the best. But it's also what separates people who retire rich from people who retire broke, even when they saved similar amounts of money. Now, here's the third piece that nobody wants to hear. You need to radically rethink what retirement even means. The traditional model of work until 65, then stop working completely and live off savings for 30 years, that model is dying. It worked when people had pensions, when healthcare was cheaper, when people didn't live as long. But that world doesn't exist anymore for most people. The future of retirement isn't going to be a hard stop at 65. It's going to be a gradual transition where you work less but don't stop completely. Maybe you retire from your stressful corporate job at 60, but then do consulting work a few days a month. Maybe you turn a hobby into a small income stream. Maybe you work part-time at something you actually enjoy just to stay active and supplement your income. This isn't failure. This is adaptation to reality. And honestly, a lot of people who do fully retire and stop working completely end up miserable anyway. They thought they wanted to do nothing, but it turns out humans need purpose and structure. So they end up going back to work not because they need the money, though that helps, but because they need something meaningful to do with their time. What if instead of trying to save enough money to never work again, you focused on building a life where work becomes optional but still possible? Where you develop skills and relationships that could generate income if you need it or wanted it, where retirement isn't about stopping everything, but about having the freedom to choose how you spend your time without financial pressure. This completely changes the retirement equation. If you know you could generate $20,000 or $30,000 per year doing something you enjoy in retirement, suddenly you don't need to save as much. If you build multiple small income streams that together cover your basic expenses, your retirement savings becomes a bonus instead of your sole lifeline. If you stay healthy and active and mentally engaged, you extend your ability to earn and reduce your risk of expensive health problems. Look, I get it. This is not what you wanted to hear. You wanted me to give you some magic savings rate or investment strategy that would guarantee a comfortable retirement. You wanted a simple answer: save 15%, invest in index funds, retire at 65, live happily ever after. But that fairy tale is built on assumptions that don't hold up for most people in the real world. The actual answer is more complex and more personal. It depends on designing a retirement lifestyle you can afford, not just accumulating a big number. It depends on building income-producing assets, not just piling up savings. It depends on staying flexible and adaptable instead of assuming you'll follow some rigid traditional retirement script. Saving money is still important, don't get me wrong. You should absolutely save as much as you reasonably can. But saving alone won't fix a broken retirement plan built on unrealistic assumptions and unsustainable spending. You can save every penny for 40 years and still end up broke in retirement if you're planning for the wrong thing. The people who retire successfully aren't the ones who saved the most money. They're the ones who thought differently about what retirement could be. They built multiple income streams. They designed affordable lifestyles they actually wanted to live. They stayed flexible and kept learning and growing. They didn't just save their way to retirement, they built their way there. So yeah, save money, but more importantly, build something. Build income streams, build skills, build a vision of retirement that doesn't require you to save $3 million or hope everything goes perfectly for 50 years. Build a life where retirement becomes a choice you can make on your terms, not a financial cliff you're hoping to survive. That's what actually fixes retirement, not just saving more.